Hello, friends. Welcome to A Little Room for Healing, where we aim to create a little more room in the world for authentic connection, insightful healing, and a deeper understanding of our hearts, ourselves, and each other through honest conversation. My name is Joel. I'm a Reiki and 13th Octave Laho Chi practitioner, a facilitator for deep healing, and your host. Today, I'm spending time with Lisa Gaub. Lisa has been practicing as a licensed clinical therapist for 20 years. She also owns and operates Sugar and Fire Baking Company, creating super delicious vegan cookies. Highly recommended. On this episode, we talk about her current clinical work as the supervisor of the Transitional Foster Care Program in Philadelphia, the challenges she's been having navigating some tricky waters, and she experiences energy healing for the first time. As we're about to wrap up, she turns the tables on me, and I answer questions that help guide me to another level of compassion for my parents. Come on in.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Joel.
I'd
say great to be here, but you're in my home.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Oh,
great
yeah,
to have you.
That's another thing. I am in Narberth, Pennsylvania, visiting her and her family. So we're in her house today, and I'm thrilled to be here.
We're always thrilled to have you.
Yes. I love hearing that. I am always so awkward in the beginning of these podcasts. I notice it every time. Like this, yes, like this. So, whatever. Let's move into it, shall we? Let's do check-ins to see where we are in this moment, and I'll go first.
Sure.
And then I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens.
So how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Well, let me preface this by saying I do a check-in at every meeting I'm in or one-on-one or group meeting. I ask everybody to start with how they're feeling that day.
Amazing.
Because everybody can check in with everybody. So that's always the first question. How are you feeling today?
Yeah,
so that
exactly.
was my instinct.
That's exactly what we do in the work that I do as well. Like if we're doing any meetings, if we're like, okay, how are we? Mm-hmm. Let's see what we're working with in the moment right now, what we're bringing, so we can all be attuned to what's happening.
Absolutely.
Love it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I am... Ooh, I have like an excited nervous energy in me. There's nervous energy flowing through me right now. I'm like uppity. It's cool. I like it. I'm feeling relaxed. When I showed up here two nights ago, I was in a little more of a
heightened state.
Heightened state. And now I had a pretty decent night's sleep last night, and I'm feeling more relaxed in my system. So that's nice to be in that with you right now. And I'm really don't know what's going to happen today. And it's also knowing that it's your first time receiving an energy healing session ever. Mm-hmm. Like that, there I can feel there's something in me that's like, I hope that it goes well for her. I hope she enjoys it. It's going to be interesting if like she doesn't feel anything, like like all these things in me going, what's going to happen with that?
Have you had... I would imagine most of the time when you provide some healing, it's because somebody's seeking that out. Versus this situation, it's part of the setup that you're offering it to me, not that I was necessarily seeking it out. So is there a different kind of pressure with that?
There is. Definitely there is, yes. Because actually there's one thing, now that we're on this, we're going to get to your check-in in a second.
Yeah.
There is one thing about it. I know that you've agreed to it and you've like welcomed me to do it. Yeah. But there is with energy healing, especially with Reiki, with any energy healing, and with anything really, consent is really important. So like you can't just start sending Reiki to someone without their consent, because possible that it won't go in because it's like they're not open to it. Right. And also like if it does go through, they can be like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. So,
and that's a trigger point for you right now.
And yeah, now and Probably always.
Always.
Now and forever.
Yes.
Hopefully not. Maybe not forever, but
Yes.
now and right now. So that's in me right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's about it for my check-in. How are you?
I'm also feeling that excited nervousness to an extent, but I'm feeling pretty grounded. I think what my brain right now is trying to navigate is my personal life and my professional life. And when I'm talking about it, I tend to keep I keep boundaries between it. And so you're a longtime personal friend, and we'll also talk about some of the work I've been doing. And I tend to leave work at work, and of course home always comes with me, but like how am I putting on some of my mental health experience hat while talking with a friend? It's new in a way. You know, I'll touch on what I do with people that I know personally, but usually for my own sanity, I just leave it in the office. So here we are.
Cool. And there's also what tends to happen. Actually, I think what tends to happen on this podcast in that relationship of personal and what you do business-wise, it does start to mesh a little bit on this podcast. Not that it has to. And so I'm curious to see how that happens too.
And I'm guessing what we talk about is probably the parts of my professional life that are leaking into my personal brain right now, because that's what I've been stewing on. I imagine it'll go there.
Well, let's start with your professional life and what you are up to in that these days, if you want to share that.
Oh, I can share that. Currently in my clinical professional life, I am a clinical supervisor at a transitional foster care program in Philadelphia. I supervise the clinical services of migrant and refugee children picked up at our southern border that have no adults with them. They're just children coming across. The authorities pick them up, and rather than keeping them locked up or in detention centers, the government now sends them to social service agencies, and we care for them until we can place them with their family or family friend or somebody in the U.S. they know or have a connection to. So most of the children are 5 to 15 years old. Sometimes they come with a sibling or a cousin. A lot of time we have 5-year-olds coming across by themselves, and then they're flown to Philadelphia, and we'll receive them in the middle of the night. But we immediately give them medical care, education, counseling services, case management services. And the whole goal is to help them feel safe, identify any traumas that they're coming across with, and just help get them feeling safe and grounded when they're with us, because we know there's so much change happening with them. So I supervise clinicians that do the day-to-day counseling and therapy, and we talk about the assessments to identify traumas. We talk a lot about just because somebody's been through trauma doesn't mean they're traumatized, doesn't mean they're disordered. A lot of these kids are so resilient, and you just see them smile and play and happy and playground and interact with peers they don't know. And then we aim to set up any, especially mental health services, we think they might need based on the things they've talked about. So wherever they go, they have a touchstone of somebody else that can help them talk through their journey and everything they've been through. So that's my most recent clinical position. Current. Yeah.
So not much going on there.
No, pretty easy.
Do they have, so are there dorms for these children?
No.
How are they sleeping? Where are they staying?
That's a fair question. It's a transitional foster care program. So we have families in Philadelphia that have agreed to be temporary foster parents who welcome them into their home. They get trained by us. We have great relationships with them. And some have kids. Some we have, are in the next phase of their life and they want to bring more meaning to it. And so these children will have school with us, therapies with us, services with us all day, sort of like a normal school day. And then they'll go to their foster families, have dinner, afternoon, weekends, holidays, and every day come back to us. So we're kind of acclimating them to a normal cycle of life, of going to school, having a family. It's not as easy as it sounds, obviously, because it's not their family and it's not their school, but just helping them feel safe with routine and structure and supports.
Are these children that have come through a portal come in legally?
No.
And is the goal to keep them here and really acclimate them to staying here? Or is at some point the goal to get them back to where?
The goal for us is to reunite them with family or whoever their family identifies here. If for example, mom may feel stuck in home country because she's in a domestic violence situation and she has somebody get her kids out of it. Mom says, I have a sister in the States. So we help reunite the kid with their aunt. What they do at that point is beyond us. Their goal may be to get mom out and then they're reunited in the home country. I mean, that's...
When you say what they do, what do you mean what they do?
What the family does.
What the family does.
What the family chooses to do.
Got it.
We're not trying to acculturate them and make them Americanized, but just give them stability, routine, safety, reunite them with somebody in their own lives that cares about them to the extent possible. And 99% of the time, it's a parent or grandparent or aunt or older sibling. And then once they leave our doors, it's sort of beyond our control. And that's okay. And of course, that's a struggle for some. How do I relinquish control of caring for this child? And assuring their safety. But
what's an average length of time that they're actually caring for this child? I mean, and you're saying is difficult for some foster families or difficult for some of the therapists as well, counselors, or both?
Sometimes the staff that I work with, I can say the counselors I work with are able to separate that and not cling. Some other people, if you work so hard to help this child and then it's like...
A bond is formed.
Good luck. And we're legally not allowed to follow up with them.
Oh, wow.
Which is not unusual in mental health, that once they're removed, a client's removed from services, no contact. And that can be harder for some than others, if you're a teacher and not a therapist, or a caseworker instead of, So part of my job is also helping my colleagues navigate their feelings and their attachments and their biases and their decision making because of how they're feeling about the situation.
So you're kind of like, as your title is supervisor, right, over them. Yeah. But in a way, you're kind of their therapist.
From the outside, I think it would look like that sometimes. It's a very specific boundary clinical supervisors have to keep. I cannot be your therapist, but I can be your guide, your mentor, your supporter. It's not going to be about somebody's personal life bringing it in, but therapists in so much as processing how the work is affecting you and helping identify what triggers or biases are coming up because of the work we're doing together. Is that clouding your decision making about what you're recommending for this child?
Right. Yeah, it's strictly quote unquote work therapy.
Sure, if you want to call it that.
Guidance.
Yeah.
Guidance. We'll call it guidance. It's not therapy, it's guidance.
And it's a whole different type of supervision than you'll get in just about any other field. It's very specific because there's a lot of fields and requires a lot of insight to reflect on that. And for clinicians specifically, the standard is 1 hour of one-on-one supervision weekly minimum for therapists and counselors. Now the teachers and the caseworkers don't necessarily get that, which is why there's differences in levels of self-reflection and understanding of what's going on with them. So that can sometimes be frustrating for me because I know the people I directly supervise, what's going on with them, but the other people around me, I can see it, and I'm not always in a position to help them process it.
What do you mean not always in a position to help them process it?
Because there are other direct supervisors.
Oh,
but they're literal position in the hierarchy.
Gotcha. Wow.
And so I might be under column A of the clinical services, and there are other services over here with supervisors, but we're all working with these children, which creates a lot of thoughts and feelings naturally as humans. And when we can see all the thoughts and feelings in column B, and I'm in charge of column A, what's my role in helping the whole team navigate these dynamics? And I find myself stuck a lot, and I find myself wanting to help, but the position lots of people find in workplaces is not wanting to step on toes, not wanting to overstep, but not wanting to see unhealthy patterns continue.
It does sound different than most companies when I think about that.
In some ways, but a lot of people can see a job where they see people in another department or maybe another supervisor and their supervisees are just doing it differently, and you're thinking, there's a much better way. You're making it harder for yourself than it needs to be. Do I just stay out of it? Or do I say, do you guys want help? And if you say yes, do you actually want help navigating this?
Have you ever offered help and been like, do I really want to help though? Certain situations?
I always want to help. I think it's a matter of I want to help, but is it gonna be helpful? Are they gonna be open to receiving the help? Or then does it become I'm the problem? And so I'm always trying to avoid them turning whatever dysfunction is happening on me. Suddenly Lisa's the problem because she's pointing out some challenging areas that may involve me thinking about what I'm doing. No.
Yeah. I know that. I actually know that.
Right.
But
and
even just in like a one-on-one, even like if somebody's coming in or in retreats that I'm a part of and I'm facilitating, and they come in and they are here for a certain thing, but I'm seeing something else. And it's like, are they capable of hearing this? Are they ready to hear this?
Yeah.
Is this a helpful thing, or do I just need to I'm now learning that don't say anything and help them and just let them be in their process of themselves, and they'll find it maybe or maybe not on their own.
Right. I've been at this job for, it'll be close to 2 years now, and I've sort of been in the holding pattern of wait for the opening. But after 2 years, what's my role in maybe forcing open a little bit?
Okay, that's
you
a
know
lot.
what I mean?
2 years is a while, yeah. Yes, definitely after 2 years.
So I'm here, I navigate, I observe, I learn, I have conversations, I build trust with people. And some people are just so tight with their control, and they want it to all be what's what they know, even if it's not working. And when do I go, I think there's a better way.
And how do you present it in a way that
it's not creating even more dysfunction?
Exactly.
And that this is that limbo I've found myself in a lot lately. Of if I see an opening, I slip something in. When I hear, I trust your judgment, what do you think? Okay, Lisa, here's the time to say the hard thing. And so I'll do that. Okay.
That's their response?
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Have you ever heard someone say to you, I trust your judgment, what do you think? And then you say the hard thing and they're really did not want to hear that.
That's a good question. It does not happen that often because I can be patient for a very long time waiting for the openings. And I rely on my instincts to really sense, like, are you saying that because you think that's the thing to say? Tell me what I need to hear. You don't want to hear what you need to hear, or yeah, maybe they do.
I have this question is coming up in me, and it's on the same topic, and it's taking you out of the work thing and into you and me dynamic. And I'm wondering if you've ever seen something with me and have been patiently holding it in.
Oh, that's a great question.
And not saying it. Over the 20 years?
20 years. There's nothing blatant coming to mind. I think in friendships, if over time, build trust with people, and I have trust with you. For me, it's always navigating. I can't be my friend's therapist. I can't be my family's therapist, So there's only so far I'm going to go because it's not my job to keep digging. But and you're the kind of person that says, here's what's on my heart. What do you think? And because you do present as open, I respond authentically to what's on my mind.
Right.
I have a little thing in my head saying, if you were his therapist, you could keep going on this and keep going on this and keep going on this. But you're his friend. So let his therapist do that.
Right. What if I was like, will you keep going on this with me? Is there an actual line when you're like, I know I'd rather not?
I'm sure there's a line, and that's probably if I feel drained, which does not happen often. I can take on a lot. But there comes to a point where I think my line is when the friendship starts to feel like my role is to be the therapist instead of the friend. When you're showing up at my proverbial doorstep for my services instead of my friendship, that's the line.
The great line. Solid line. Yeah.
And I do have people that walk up to the line. And I have to say, I'm not your therapist. I'm not your therapist, I'm your friend.
One of the things about our friendship and my friendship with your family is that I don't see you guys often because I live in New York and you live here, obviously. And so when I show up, I find that I often come in and we have a greeting and then I do a dump of where I am.
Sure.
And then we get through the dump and then we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And so there's a balance. It's not all dump and leave.
Yeah.
Which is a really crude way to say it, but
Thank goodness I'm not just coming in, leaving a dump and then leaving.
But when people do that, it does feel shitty.
Yeah. does. It really does.
But I also know that sometimes friendship is, I need to get out of whatever circumstance I'm in, and I feel safe with you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel either stuck or unsafe, or I'm treading water, and I need to get out and be with people I know that care about me unconditionally and are just there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I do that too sometimes. I just need to go have a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And, if you do that, you're at home and then you say, I need a change. And I always say, you're always welcome. Just come retreat here.
Mm-hmm.
And you show up and you dump. And then we...
and then we chill. Then we watch...
watch funny things on TV, and we take walks, and we eat bagels, and, there's a good balance there.
Yeah.
Because part of our job as friends is to receive some of the, I just need to unload a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The line is when it becomes, I'm knocking because I need to unload, and then I leave. And there's no, so how are you doing, really? Because I'm open to receiving as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so important, the reciprocation of it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to happen every time, because
no.
Obviously, if someone's in a place where they actually are not able to receive someone else's as a friend,
of course.
I'm not gonna be like, you know what, I need you to listen to me now.
Right. If somebody's going through grief, if somebody's going through addiction, if somebody's going through life crisis, they might not be able to take on more, and that's okay. But if it's year after year after year, I've got a problem.
Yeah, I just thought, what's that song? If you got a problem, I'll solve it. What, Ice Ice Baby?
Ice Ice Baby.
He's leaving himself open to some pretty tough stuff there in that song. If you got a problem, I'll solve it, and people are just gonna be like, okay, Ice Baby.
But his resolution though is the hook. Check out the hook.
Oh yeah.
My DJ will revolve it.
I'll solve it. Here, I have a DJ who's gonna get. Oh wow, what a great! He's got it figured out. He's got it figured out. Then he gets the credit for the hookup.
Right. He's the one making the charts.
There was another question I had about the children.
Yeah.
If you don't mind jumping back to that real
Please do. Yeah.
You said a lot of them are resilient and are smiling and playing happy. I'm curious if any time in that situation where they are resilient, that their resilience is actually a protection for what's really going on underneath, and they're resilient, but they're really actually, they're obviously going through some huge things.
Well, that's the thing. I always say they're still on their journeys. And when especially children, when a lot of them have been traumatized, they can't take a breath and let it out until they feel safe and secure. And even if they feel safe with us, they're still in the middle of their journey. They're still in survival mode. And so for many, it doesn't behoove them to put their armor down because they haven't had trusting caretakers and whatnot. Some we can see that can verbalize it and say, I got out of that situation and I feel like I can move on with my life. I feel safe with you guys. I feel safe about where I'm going. And and we recognize that some things could fall down over time as they come up. They're showing resilience. We also recognize that, like I said, being through trauma, so often mental health, people come to services because they're seeking services. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm all that. And so if you've been in those helping situations, community mental health center, outpatient, inpatient, hospitalization, working those things, people are coming in because they're really struggling and they're seeking help. these are kids who are coming to us, and we're providing them mental health services, whether they ask for it or not. And so sometimes when you've worked in mental health long enough, you have to remind yourself, like I've said, not everybody is going to end up traumatized and disordered. And so we build on their strengths. We identify their strengths. We validate what they've been through. A lot of it's not your fault conversations, which I think so many kids didn't have at the very point of their traumas. And so we're trying to 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. What do you need? What makes you feel better? Let's talk about your coping skills. Let's talk about what makes you great. Let's talk about what you need. And so many of them can either say, you know what, I'm good right now. Thank you for asking. More than you'd think. We know that down the road things may pop up long past when they're with them or when they're with us. But it's putting together, planting the seeds, laying the bricks at the very foundation of their strengths, helping them put to words what they're thinking, feeling, what they need, giving them the skills to do that as they move forward. And I think my framework, again, having worked in mental health for so long, is people often come for services when they've fallen apart. And so to see these kids who've been through so much, just, all right, let's learn math today. Let's go play. And maybe that's my bias. I see the resilience in that, where for so long I saw people at their worst when they were desperate for help. I guess that's what I mean by resilience, just seeing the ability to get through things, but also not victimize them by default because of what they've been through.
You're not, if they're in if they're in like a place of, I'm good. Yeah. Even though underneath there's stuff going on. Yeah. You're not trying to say, no, there's stuff going on. You need to feel this. You're like, okay, you're good right now. We can be with you in that. And just a reminder that, what happened is not your fault. Just want to throw that out there. And
yes. And so we go, as clinicians, we go into what we call psychoeducation mode. You may say, you're good. We'll talk to you. We'll provide you information about this. You talked about some sexual assault. We're going to let you know, A, how common it is, feelings people might feel when they've been through this, challenges they may have when they've been through this. It's great that you're feeling safe and grounded now. We just want to prepare you that these things may come up later. Also, it's not your fault, And so when they do come up, it's not like, what's wrong with me? It's, oh, she told me this might come up.
Did you actually say them? We're just preparing for you what might come up. You actually say those words. That's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. I have this feeling of, I'm starting to feel what some of the workers that you work with might feel when they do this work with a kid or these kids, and then they're like, okay, send them on their way, and now they're no longer in your hands, and like suddenly it's like, what are their family going to do now? Like, how are they going to be held? How are they going to be treated?
Are they going to follow through with everything we're setting up for these kids?
Are they going to follow through? Are the kids going to remember this? Are they going to be able to, is it solidified in them enough to be able to traverse what's about to happen to them without us? Woo! That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. It almost makes me want to, I'm feel fear, and I feel sadness, and I feel worry and concern, like tearing up a little bit, just, and I'm not even doing it, just hearing about the possibility of it.
And my stance is, I've got to assume the worst of the caretaker on the other end. They may not have the resources to get it all done, but nobody is going to love that child as much as their own family.
Wait,
there
say that
are
again?
exceptions. There are exceptions.
Yeah, my brain was
Sure.
like, I hope that's true.
Set
I
that
hope that's
aside.
true. Yeah.
Set that aside. But research shows that children in homes of their, I'm going to say, original family, where there is some level of abuse, have better outcomes than children who are removed from those homes and put in foster care, group homes, whatnot. Is better for them to experience a little abuse with their family of origin. Better is relative.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at
Yeah.
long-term mental health and medical outcomes,
Right.
they do better in their communities, going to school, being with their parents, than removed because the parents aren't up to snuff. You may say, we're putting them in a better situation. The outcomes are worse long-term. And so my instincts may say, there's a chance the parent may not follow through on something.
Right.
But this is their child. And I have to assume they're going to love them more than any other adult, truly, instinctually, as a parent. Again, just set aside there are exceptions.
Totally.
And just know that when we're placing a child with this adult, there are lots of background checks, there's interviews, there's home visits, you're the mother, but we're going to do all the checks to ensure there's no criminal background that's concerning. And
you can do this if a child is going to their aunt or uncle or cousin or
any adult. They have to prove they're actually the person they say they are. Background checks. Any red flags, somebody showing up at the house, any sort of I don't know if this story's right or accurate or if something else is going on. Somebody shows up to talk to them and said, oh, there are 3 other people living in this house we didn't know about. They either need to get them out or we need to do background checks on them because we can't send them to a sexual predator, for example. So there's a lot of case management background work that's happening on a very basic level. So assuming all that checks out, I'm going to assume the best of the person on the receiving end for this child. And so, yes, there can be fears, there can be anxiety, especially if the child has been with us for a while, because the kids will be with us for sometimes 5 days, sometimes 5 months, depending on what's going on the other end. And it can be anxiety provoking to say, I heard that this week. I just don't know if this parent's going to follow through on the things. But we can't assume we know best. That is the child's parent. Yeah. We can't assume we'll take care of them better than the parent that the child is saying they want to go to, and the parent is saying, I want my child. But it just... It sounds like a you issue. And it's those conversations that can get challenging sometimes. Because they're not open to hearing that, because they think they're making what's in the best interest of the child because of their gut is having that response.
Do you find that more often than not, that gut response in that situation where the kid wants to go to the parent wants the kid, and the background checks have all been hit, everything's the gut response is actually something from their own, I mean, you kind of said this, but their own past, their own childhood, their own trauma?
Sometimes, yes. And sometimes working on the case has been so challenging for a variety of roadblocks that they've become sort of frustrated and resentful about having to do this or that they're not seeing clearly on what's in the best interest of, I have these conversations with the parent, and I hear one story one day, what's the truth? What's the reality? What are they scheming here? What's going on? And it's maybe there was a language barrier. Maybe there's a cultural barrier. Maybe you have to recognize he's a man and you're a woman, and maybe he just doesn't care what you think culturally.
Bureaucracy.
There's bureaucracy. There's patriarchy. There's misogyny. So it doesn't necessarily mean if you're a woman and you're trying to communicate with the man from another culture, and this is where it's like your cultural bias can come in, and the white savior complex can come in, and you have to check yourself and say, why do I think I know best?
Totally.
Why do I think I know the best thing for this child? What facts can you present to keep this child from his family? It doesn't feel right. I understand that, and that's valid. How can you justify keeping this child from, and these tough conversations? And not everybody is in a place of self-reflection, and that gets frustrating for me, because you're making decisions about other people's lives based on your feelings. Sometimes your feelings are based on your biases and your triggers.
Wow. Yeah.
And then it becomes, what's my role in helping them see that? I'm not their supervisor. I'm not, like, I can express my thoughts and feelings on it. I can express my concerns, but the problem becomes when this is a pattern over and over of, here we go again.
Sensing some frustration.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go again.
One more question, and then we're going to veer into intentions for your session.
Okay.
But I want to get this out beforehand. Have there been any difficult navigational waters through the foster people and the kid? Has there been any difficult scenarios in that?
Yes. Yes, because styles are different. And so sometimes the dynamics of the foster family are very different from the family of origin. When we have kids, say, we have a boisterous Philadelphia family who yells to communicate, not necessarily in anger, but they're loud and they're, hey, blah, blah, blah. You have a child who's been physically and emotionally abused, and yelling is a trigger for them. And they find, we've heard this before. Yes, I feel safe, but I don't always feel comfortable. And then trying to drill down with them, what does that mean? And then having a conversation and saying, like, foster family, you're not doing anything wrong, but we want to help you be aware that these things are challenging for this child. Loud voices, yelling, being super direct, because of their history, because of what's happened to them, can be hard, and helping them have a little front of mind about that, or just the way people give directives can be hard for some children. And it doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong, it just means the styles are different. I assume
that sometimes it's difficult for families to hear that their style is not working with this.
Sometimes it can be, and honestly it usually ends up being the clinician having the conversation, because they're best at framing it in a way to help the information be heard. For about 15 years I worked with the juvenile justice population and boys, and half of them responded positively to the kind of yelling directives because that was comfortable for them. Mom saying, hey, go over here and do this. And I'm like, okay. Some of them shut down. And so it's helping staff navigate that. Well, this is just my style. Yes, but you may not get the response you want if you're yelling, because this child either gets triggered and angry or shuts down because they're fearful. Yeah, but so-and-so takes it no. Yeah, they're different people.
Yeah.
And so it's always about helping the adult and saying, we're the adult, they're the child. Their job is not to match you. Our job is to match them. And having those conversations.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. That's, yeah, the child needs as little pressure as possible. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's not the child's job to match you, it's your job to match the child?
Yeah, I mean, they're already adapting so much. I always say, if something's not working, it's our job to change it, not the child's job to change themselves.
Yeah.
If the scenario in the classroom, the child's getting up and running out a lot, getting up and running to the bathroom, the job is not to punish the child or provide these consequences for this child. The child is still in their journey. Our number one job is to keep them safe. When they run out, are they safe? If not, why? And what do we do to make sure they're safe? What can we do in the environment to make it so they do feel safe? Our job is not to make the kids follow the program, it's to build the program so the kids feel safe.
Can we implement that into all schools?
And here's where I come up against a challenge, because in multiple programs I've been in, it's that people don't want to change the old school way of thinking. And so I say, to what degree do I push back and say, we're the adults, we have the power, we need to use it responsibly. And when do I say, nobody's ready to change, I need to move on? But then I say, it needs to change. It needs to change for the sake of the children.
For the children,
and it's
please.
This cycle of frustration, trying to be in the system to change the system. And where's the line of being so frustrated that you have to remove yourself? That's my eternal struggle in nonprofit mental health. People saying, don't you want to just do, open your own practice? I could do that. I could sit in an office and make money and talk to people, but I have a higher calling. I'm drawn to systems and making organizations function better for the whole.
Nice.
And that's why I get stuck when the adults in the room don't want to play along. Hear it.
The adults in the room let their inner child
rule.
Stuck.
Yeah. Make the decisions.
This is fun. So I've been feeling into, while we're talking, I've been feeling into actually, let me hear what your intentions might be for your session.
Well, and being completely new about this, help me understand what setting an intention means in this situation.
It means to me, what is most alive in you that you would like to be cared for, or to move energetically, release, have insights on. Yeah, basically.
Well, I think what I can best do is express where I'm feeling stuck, and maybe that can help to some extent, because I'm still a little ambiguous to me. Okay. This whole energy healing thing.
Sure.
So it's sort of what we've discussed to some extent, feeling stuck about when do I push harder in these uncomfortable situations with, especially right now, colleagues, where I'm seeing the patterns of dysfunction over and over again, and they're not super open to receiving guidance or feedback. Everybody's feeling out of sorts. Everybody's starting to feel somewhat emotionally unsafe around each other because it feels like chaos. And I want to be a grounding force for that chaos, but I'm not sure where to start, and I'm not sure what my role is in that. When do I push, and when do I have to protect myself from being the receiver of negativity that is unproductive? I can take on negativity, but if it's just constantly their defenses blocking me with no movement, that's going to be hard.
Gotcha.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So I'm almost sort of stuck with what to do next. And I'm reflecting on it, and I don't know yet. I started reading a book for a book club I'm in, and it's a lot about vulnerability, and its vulnerability is not about just talking about everything that's on your heart, but pushing through that discomfort. When something's uncomfortable, you can either avoid it or be vulnerable and say, this is hard for me, but keep going. And so that's sort of been okay, I gotta keep going in some way, because my nature is to just retreat and protect myself. It's just going to be easier if I stay in my office and protect myself and just do what I got to do. But my other side over here is saying there's a bigger picture that needs help. So pushing through that discomfort, but hope with the end goal being in a productive way for the whole system. And I'm stuck with how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, what my role is in that, not overstepping my own role in the dynamic, not assuming I know best also.
Can I tell you what I'm hearing, or do you have more?
No, that's it. That's it.
I'm hearing that you would like grounding, clarity, strength. There was another word, but I lost it, and
okay.
That's fine. It doesn't need to be said.
Yeah.
Grounding, clarity, and strength.
Yeah.
Cool.
Can you work with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so to me, that says 13th octave Lahuji in this moment.
Okay.
As the modality to give you. And that's because with Reiki, to me, it feels like more of blockage movements and working on physical ailments and emotional ailments or difficulties. And 13th octave is about centering and connecting with your higher self and grounding, and so it feels like that's the route.
Well, you were the expert here, so I'll trust you.
Cool. Then let us do it. You
okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
We will be right back after Lisa's 13th octave Lahuji session. And we are back from Lisa's 13th octave Lahuji session, and also her first ever energy healing session. And I'm so curious about what your experience was, and it's been interesting because most of the time, pretty much every time, when we're in between the energy healing and setting up to start the second half, people have already expressed something about the experience, and you have been silent. So I know that you're just making me anxious and nervous.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not horrible. It's not horrible.
But
I
was having a lot of thoughts, and I just wanted to save it for
great.
This.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I know you weren't doing it on purpose.
No.
Making me anxious and nervous.
No.
But I was like so curious, and before you go into it,
please. Yeah.
One of the things that we've been friends, you've known me before I got into energy healing.
Absolutely. So
I don't often do energy healing on people that know me before I got into energy healing. And so there's this interesting, like, crossing over into a new stage of our friendship now, in a way, where allow you it's like bringing someone into something that seems a little out there to a lot of people, and I don't know how you feel about it. We actually haven't. I know you said you were open to it, but so to have someone that's known me that long to see me in this light, things are happening in my system. Yeah.
Which is interesting because some of my experience, I think there's crossover with that, but I don't want to cut you off. So
I have completed. So now I'm ready and curious to hear about you.
So, well, let me start with observational things, just like concrete observational things. I appreciated how you were doing some deep breaths, because not that I needed it, but I know that's a very valuable thing. Mirror neurons are super important to get somebody who might be a little holding back to like release a little. And I was already there, but I felt you do it, and I was like, that's the right move, because we naturally, our parasympathetic systems align. You know, it's something you can do with anybody who's anxious and upset, is to help them breathe and let it out. And so you did that at a couple points, so it was like, right on. Cool. The other thing I liked was the tonal music, because I know some tones can really activate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic in like a way that's very grounding. But there was a period, maybe 30% of the way through, where the tones were very dissonant, and I found that challenging to sit with, because I was like, all I can think is, please stop being dissonant, get back to where it's like calming.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, this isn't helpful for me right now. I wonder why this is here, this tone, because I was very much focusing on the tones and like just letting it kind of carry me into relaxation. And whenever my mind would start going, I'm like, go back to the tones. But when it was dissonant, I couldn't do that. And so it was like, just stop. Let's get back to center, please. Cool. Which had nothing to do with me or you. It was just the tone. So there were the first things. I'll point out a couple unusual experiences. The first one was I had this sensation of like a veil coming down over my eyes. I was like, well, that's interesting. I kind of sat with that. I thought, it really feels like something's coming down over my eyes. And I thought, well, it really feels like something's on my eyes. And then I remembered I had an eye mask on. But the sensation of the coming down was separate from that. So it was like, but then I was like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. I can't see. Oh, wait. You have an eye mask on. That's why there's literally something on your eyes. But that like, it was almost like a tingling movement. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't ascribe meaning to it. It was just there. And then there was a moment right before your like final incantation, when you were standing by me, where I heard very silent walking in the kitchen, and I assumed you were in there, like you had stepped away.
Wow.
And then I heard you right next to me, and I was like, whoa, it sounded like somebody was in the kitchen with us.
This was in the beginning or
towards the end? Right towards the very
right
end.
At the end.
Right before your incantation when you were standing. Oh. I'm like, well, that was weird, because it, like, auditorially, it sounded like somebody was tiptoeing, like in shoes, through my kitchen, and I thought you had stepped away to be quiet.
Oh, interesting.
And then we're going to come back, but you were there.
Cool.
I was like, that was not Joel. So I was like, well, that was interesting. Again, didn't ascribe meaning to it, but it was there. Do you want to respond to those, or do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. I know I'm very attuned with people, and so like I had said when we first talked about this, when I said I get massages regularly because I find them very healing. And it took me a very long time to not worry constantly about how my masseuse was feeling. Like, are their hands okay? Are they having a bad day? Like, I couldn't get myself out of my head because I was so concerned about how the other person's was doing. And so I've had to learn to like let that go. Like, I'm paying them for a service. They're doing it because they're choosing to. Take advantage of what it can do for you. And so, you know, okay, relax, heal, breathe, get yourself out of your mind with that. It's harder to do when it's your friend. Which kind of relates to this, like, you performing healing on a friend. It's harder to have that separation. And so I found myself very much like, his hands feel shaky. Is he okay? Is he feeling nervous right now? How is Joel doing with this? How is he responding to essentially chanting when some of that's been a trigger for him? And so I've gone through this, was going through this whole process. And at one point, I thought, I think Joel needs healing here. And I felt myself pushing my energy to you of like, give him healing, give him healing, give him healing. Like pushing it back towards you. Because I was like, I wanted you to be okay.
Wow.
And so I did that for a while. And I was like, okay, go back to center. Align with the tones. And then there was a moment when it almost like you kind of burped a little bit. And I just had this vision, and it sounds disgusting, but I was not disgusted by it, of you just spewing everything on top of me. Like all your thoughts and feelings just came out all over me. And again, I wasn't bothered by it.
Right.
I just felt like, I would love Joel to be able to purge all of this stuff. And I thought, what do I do with that? You know, come back to center, right?
I'm loving this.
And I thought, okay, what can I take from this? When I can disconnect myself from the person, say a stranger, it's easier for me to like do what I need to do. The more closer I am to a person personally, the harder it is for me to disconnect myself and want to help and be protective of them. I thought, how does this apply to my work situation? Because the more I've gotten to know people, the harder it is for me to challenge or put myself and them in a situation that's uncomfortable, because I know them as people, not just like a caseworker or whatever. I thought, okay, but I also can have hard conversations with people I know. So how did I get there? It was building blocks. Are you open to feedback on this? Yes. What do you want from this, say, supervisory relationship? I want you to be able to call me out on X. I want to know if I'm doing this right or what I can do better. It's conversations of building up to honest feedback and distress tolerance. I thought, what can I do with that? And I kind of got to these situations where it's challenging for me. Maybe working on building up the distress tolerance with those who have very low tolerance. So if person X really has a hard time hearing feedback, start with small bits of honest, vulnerable feedback. Not wait until it's so big that they can't receive. So start with the, like, it's not a big deal, but it's slightly uncomfortable or slightly challenging. Start there. Little bits until maybe they're more receptive to some more challenging things. And just have regular conversations versus waiting until my tolerance for the toxicity and dysfunction is so much that it can't hold it in anymore. And so all going with, I mean, it all led to that.
Awesome. It's awesome. I love it. I love every bit of it. So good.
How about you? What was your experience?
It was great. It was great. I expressed to you before we started, right before we got on, you got on the table, that I was nervous. I had some nervous energy in me because of what I already stated, our friendship and and then once I got through the incantation and the chanting, which felt more awkward this time than usual, I was locked in, and what you felt of my hands shaking, like I even was like, oh, she feels my hands shaking, like I knew it. It's interesting. It wasn't because of any nerves.
Good.
It was because of my body's position.
Sure.
And I'm usually lower, so my hands are up, and then I have, but like they were like in a place was like this, so it was like
your muscle tension. Yeah.
And I was like, just in the, I wonder what she's thinking about my hands shaking.
Which is interesting because we thought the same thing about the reverse at the same time.
Yeah.
I wonder how he's doing with his hands shaking.
Yeah. And then I was really in, like, the energy was feeling really good flowing through me, and I was just locked into that, and noticing how still you were. And just only occasionally I was having the curiosity. Was like, I wonder what her experience is. Like, I wonder what's going on here. But I was able to actually, for the most part, disengage from my needing to know what was going on with you. And then the worry of what's it going to feel like if she sits up and says, nothing really happened. And I was able to let go of that, and I was just in the focus of doing the work on you. So I was pleased with that.
I am too, because I had a hard time disengaging with worrying about your experience.
Right.
It really did. And making sure you were okay.
Yeah.
Which has more to do with me than you. I know.
And it led you to where you got.
Yeah.
And that's the journey. You just had a little healing journey, or clarity journey, or whatever you want to call it. I love that. I love that.
I mean, we experienced this recently where it's like, oh, what are these thoughts and feelings? And I process it and came back to you. So I do this naturally, but I think the issue is not having the space to do that frequently. Not having the quiet space and the time to sit with my thoughts, because there's so much happening, so much input coming, and my attention's going. So it allowed me the space to, like, go from this to this. Well, what's that about? To this. Well, what's that about? To this. What's that about? And I had enough time to get through that experience, which is hard to find that space these days.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I take it as a success.
Good.
It was a success. And you had a couple energetic / supernatural experiences too on top of it, which is awesome. So curious about the sound of the walking in the kitchen and what that was, because it sounds like it happened right after the Angels of Light, because Angels of Light is the last thing I do.
It was right before.
It was right before that.
It was right before. Because I thought you were in the kitchen, and then I heard you there, and you started.
Oh, wow. I started saying the Angels of Light, or the lychee bastard, please heal Lisa. Was it right before that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Oh, it makes sense because that you would think that I might have been away from you because the portion before that is a hand position over the groin, so I'm actually not touching you. So there's a long time where I wasn't touching you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I heard it, and I was like, oh, during that part, he might have just stepped away. But then I heard you stand up.
Oh, right.
Immediately after.
Amazing. Oh, I wonder who was visiting. Cool. Fun. Well, it's fun. It's fun to receive this feedback from. I also, you know what? There's something that I have in me that there's an assumption that I have of you. That is that you're skeptical. And I don't even know if that's true or not, but for some reason, I don't know why. Maybe if I investigate it, I could find it, but skeptical of not just of things.
Of things?
Of things. I always find, I don't know what it is. There's this.
There is a big logic part of me. I mean, I think more than skeptic, I'm ambivalent at times. Like, are there aliens? Maybe. Do I care? Not really.
That's what that must be. I think that's what it is.
Not really. And I don't spend time trying to figure it out. I have no evidence, but I don't have not evidence. So I'm just proving evidence.
Yeah.
And I'm open to things, receiving things, but I'm not looking for the answers all the time. I'm more waiting for them to come to me.
I think that's what it is that I've been, and it's amazing that I haven't brought this to you from the moment I met you for over 20 years. I don't care to go looking for the answers for certain things. Like
I don't feel driven.
Yeah. It's that.
It's not that I don't care. For a lot of things I don't.
It's that ambivalence that my system takes on as skeptical.
Sure.
Yeah. That's good to know.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are looking for answers and seeking something that they need. And I feel grounded where I am. I'm not seeking. I mean, I'm naturally curious about things. I'm just open to receiving, but I'm not, what's the meaning of life? Who am I? I am, and I'm comfortable with who I am, and I was kind of born that way to an extent.
Oh, wow.
It's just who I am.
Yeah, and I think that's why. I think that is hard for me to grasp with people. And I take that as, my system takes that as, oh, you're closed off to things.
Sure.
Actually, but then I've always been surprised by you. When I'm like, wait a minute, is she closed off or is she not closed off? What's going on here? It's all making sense now.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of my journey as a clinician and helper is, I think we even experienced this when we were talking the other night, you say, how do you just let go of anger? And we both were kind of like, just let it go. But how do we explain to people how we do that? We just do. We just let the things go. It's hard to...
You let things go. I have a hard time with letting it go.
Yes, but Andrew as well was talking about that.
Oh, that's right. Andrew is Lisa's husband.
Yes, you're very, even longer friend.
Yeah, who I've known since high school. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you guys, I'm not blown away by that. You guys just let it go. And I'm like, I am stuck, and I have to feel it all in order for it to move, and it's a lot.
Right.
And then I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to move it. And then I get stuck again. And I want to fix it. And I want to understand it. And I want to make the other person understand it. Oh, so much.
But from our perspective, after a while, it's, how is that serving you? At what point? where your whole life becomes a cycle of trying to figure out where is this coming from and what do I do? Like, at some point, where's the rest of peace and ground? You know, like, are you? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that loud and clear. There's a lot, and luckily it only comes in waves. So there is plenty of time where there's peace and grounding.
Yeah.
But when it is happening, it's just unsafety. It's just that I'm innately unsafe, so I need to know everything to be safe. And that's why.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a reminder for me to not take for granted that I feel safe in my own home, because I know not everybody does. And it's easier said than done to do things if you're in that amygdala brain, that activated, irrational but necessary for survival part.
You need the alarm system.
Yeah.
Did you feel, growing up, did you always just feel safe? Were you, like, in your home and where you were? Did you ever have to work for it?
Sometimes I had to work for it. Yeah, I mean, we just over generations, right? Like, people handle things differently, and it doesn't feel good, and I'm not really getting told what to do with that. So,
you have two sisters?
Yeah.
Are your sisters similar to you in this regard?
Yes, I can say that because I know a lot of, they find themselves in positions like me where people seek their advice, seek their guidance, unload a little bit. But when it's the three of us, it's different. I see all the pieces, unique as we can with our original family. And I think they get more activated than I do with some things.
You're the oldest, right?
Yes, I am. There are things I've just said, things are the way they are, and I can accept it and move on, or I can keep just trying to drill on it, and I don't need that. I feel
like that's how my brother is. He's the oldest. Yeah. There's four kids in my family, and he's the oldest, and I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's like that too. He's just like, I feel this way. Things are the way they are. I don't really need to get into it. I get it. And I'm like, must know everything.
Right.
I'm terrified.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there was a point in my life, once I left the house, I got into it and I did the work, and then I don't need to revisit it constantly. I just, what is this? What's going on? What do I need to do differently? What patterns need to change? What instincts need to be honed in and self-aware of, and let it out and move on.
Question about the session we did again.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your intention was met?
Yes, because I am a big action step person, and it left me with an action step to work towards that goal.
Cool. Great. Yay.
Because I didn't walk away going, well, it's exactly the same with that. Mm-hmm. But again, I had the space to really sit with it. What is this about? And I think there was a real benefit to having you do that, because it got me to that relational aspect. What is it that leads me down a certain line of thinking or certain reactions or feelings when I know the person?
That's awesome. I love the way it works.
Yeah.
So much. It always happens in a way I don't expect. I've said this before on this podcast, but that it thrills me and it blows my mind every time that the answer for me 99.9% of the time comes in a way that I do not expect. Mm. Or an answer or a guidance or a new understanding. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is this face? Tell me what this face is, please.
That was more of a, how are you going to wrap it up now, Joel?
How am I going to wrap it up? Is it time to wrap it up?
Not necessarily, but it had that air of like conclusion. Like, are we going to keep going or are we wrapping it up? That's all.
Is there anything?
Anticipation. I guess that was an anticipatory. What's next?
It wasn't so much a, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't a assessment of what I said.
Correct.
Got it. Got it. I know we actually do have a time limit that we can be together. Mm-hmm. I want to know, how much time do you need before your thing in order for you to feel like good?
5 minutes.
Amazing. So there's a little space. I mean, we don't necessarily have to keep going, but if something else wants to come up, I'm happy to keep going.
Well, there was one other thing that came up. And it came up and it was part of my thinking through things. And of course it had to do with you, but it was let me say this. I have little to no religious / church trauma or drama or whatever, because I was not really raised in a religious household. I did start going to church of my own choice because there was like little discussion about God, the universe, all this stuff, you hear about Christmas and Jesus, and I was like, I literally have no idea what this is about. No idea, and so it's part of our culture. I wanted to learn, and I found the music like the most meditative part for me, and in the Lutheran church, the chanting and I find it very meditative, and I know for some people it's triggering. Mm-hmm. And I found your chanting to be very reminiscent of Lutheran chanting in a way that's positive for me. Which then led me to you, thinking, this is so interesting that here he is chanting in a way to me that is similar to the something that is so challenging for you.
Yeah.
Which led me to think, if you have kids, would you introduce your children to this sort of process or healing ritual?
Wow, what a great question.
Because to some extent, that's what your parents did to you. That's such a good question. Oof. And it's like hard to be like, this is my answer to that, because I've never even thought of that, because I haven't even really thought of having kids. Sure. But if you were to put yourself in that position where you did have one, and this is so meaningful and healing for you.
I want to look into this.
And so my thought was, well, yeah, if something is healing and wonderful for me or makes sense for me, I would want to guide them to that. Now, I think you would probably say I wouldn't force it or say you have to, which is a difference. But could that lead you to some compassion for the position your parents were in, if they truly felt like this was the best for them and essential for them, and they want their children to have the essential.
I mean, I've been at that question for years.
Sure.
So yes,
But I saw the parallels.
Yeah, I see the parallel too. I really love this inquiry. I do have compassion for them already, and having asked this question, I can see space for more compassion in the parallel. There is compassion because I know that this is what they believe, have patterned their whole life after. It's what they've known since they were children.
Yeah.
And it's also what makes them feel safe in the world.
Yeah.
So I do have compassion for that. The part that is hard for me with them, and the part that I would never do to my children if I had them, is if they said, this doesn't feel good, I would ask them why. And I would be in that with them, and I would hear them, and then I would not make them do something that didn't feel good. So I feel like if I had children and I would let them know what I do.
Yeah.
And I would bring them in on it, hey, this is what I do, and this is what it means to me. And then I would let them, if they want to try it, but not force them to try it. Yeah. If they want to receive, I would give it to them. And then I'd be in dialogue with them throughout the whole, any questions they have throughout the rest of our lives together. Be open to any dissonance they feel with it, any alignment they feel with it, and be totally cool with the conversation. And if they did not like it and they didn't believe it, I would totally be in that conversation with them and be in that awkwardness. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. I would do my best to do that. Which is in
opposition to the way your inner child was approached with this.
It is the opposite of my experience.
And my assumption is your parents weren't given that option either, to explore their thoughts and feelings and safety within it.
100%. They were not.
So they don't know how to.
Yep. Yeah. Which is understandable, and that's where there's compassion to be found. It's also really hard for my scared, hurt little inner child to hear and be with. So my job is to reparent the inner child and let him feel seen and heard the way he wanted to be, and also to have that compassion for my parents.
Yeah. How do you know? How do you know?
It's hard work. I'm not fully there. I will totally 100% admit.
How will you know when you are there?
When I don't know for certain when I'll know when I'm there. First off, but my hunch, as of this moment, with my new information that I have about how scared I am underneath, is that I will know I'm there when I can fully, my inner child can fully feel safe with me.
How will you know when that's happening?
I think that there's an underlying nervous system reaction that will feel less reactive.
Okay.
And in that, I think more understanding and more compassion will have space to live. And when I start feeling that mix, that change happen, then I feel like that's when I'll be able to explore more that relationship with my parents.
Could you imagine it be possible that instinctual survival reaction never really goes away?
I can imagine.
And the work is what to do when it does happen? And I know you are doing that to some extent, but if you can just accept fully that that's not going away, but the change is what to do with that.
That's an important question, because I think that's what I'm saying. I just didn't say it like that.
Okay.
It's not, I think you're right. It's not that it's going to go away. It's that I will have the ability in the relationship with that inner child, that scared part of me, so that when it happens, I know where to go, what to say, what to do with that part. And that part is trusting of me and hearing me and will be like, jump in my arms and say, okay, I can be held by you and I'll feel safe.
Yeah.
I think when I get to, so it's may never go away. Quite most likely will never ever go away. Yeah. But my ability to be with it will change.
Yeah, because I didn't want you to be setting yourself up to be waiting and waiting and waiting for that to stop happening.
Yeah.
And then never feel like you can move past it.
Clarification is most welcome.
Which is why it's important for you to also define what that looks like when it does happen. Like, how do I know I'm doing better, whatever that means for you, or making progress, or getting there when those things do happen? Because when we're in that state, we can't make rational decisions. We can't think through logically like I just did for 45 minutes. So the thing to do is define it and plan around it and think about it and practice it when things are when you're less reactive, so that when it does happen, it's already there. The map is there. I just have to read it. But it's not the time to create the map.
Yes, exactly. Amen to that. and something that I've learned, I'm learning over the last, months, but really actually my body's starting to what's the word, take on or actually understand. My body, like logically I've understood, but my body's really understanding now, is that, and I talked a little bit about my anger protected part with your friend Brenna yesterday on the podcast, which it actually was that as of this recording, as of this being put out to the world, it was a week ago, her podcast. And but I didn't say this on that episode. I'm learning really clearly that when I get scared and I have that angry protector, that when I try to explain myself to people through the angry protector lens, no one can hear me. Because it's too, it's like it's like, so yes, making the map before it happens is key. And that's actually, in the dynamic I'm in right now, is what I'm embracing as a great opportunity to really practice and learn.
Yeah. This is here for a reason.
It always is.
And you can imagine there be situations where you're slightly annoyed, slightly triggered, but not blow up. And okay, that's the time to practice
that's good.
Like, what grounds me right now? Is it purposely saying slowest breaths I can get to? Is it purposely putting my brain on that tone and not this? Is it walking away for a little bit and doing XYZ, listening to music, playing guitar, whatever? And so you're building up to that instead of just, whoa, that was uncomfortable, move about my day.
Yeah.
Sort of what I'm saying with my issue is building up to stress tolerance. Yeah. But you gotta kind of have a plan in place, or else the amygdala takes over.
Yeah. Such a great offering. And so, so important. And so welcome. I love the idea of when the small triggers happen. Yeah. That's the playground to practice in.
The practice session.
The practice room. That's getting your instrument and going into the practice room and playing. Yeah. Yeah. Play that scale over
and over. So because we're, the trigger goes, that wire has gone over, the neural pathway has gone over and over, and we have to try and get it to go this way this time. But if we only try to do that when we're in the middle of this, it doesn't work. We gotta go, nope, this way. Nope, this way. Nope, this way. So when it starts going, we can go, no, we're going the other way.
We are rewiring.
Yes.
It's rewiring.
Yes, literally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, science. It is rewiring.
Yeah.
Which is why things like the breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and that takes us into the pathways that are more healing for us, and centering and grounding, and we can force our nervous systems into
Mm-hmm.
that to an extent.
I do find that what I've been practicing lately is the breathing. I get into deep breaths, and I'm literally having a conversation with my child. I'm reaching out to him and I'm saying, hey, I see that you're scared. I am here for you, and I'm going to be here for you, and I'm not going to force you to need to be with me, but I want you to know that I'm sitting right here, and when you want to come to me to be held, I'm open to it. And just to say, and you're safe. You're safe. There's no harm around you right now. I hear that you feel scared and that you feel like there's harm, but I am here to be with you in a loving, caring way. And I have these conversations, and then he starts to hear me.
Okay.
That's what works for me lately.
I do what works. Is there ever any part of where you focusing on your inner child dissociates you from current you?
Meaning that I'm possibly doing that to get away from the feeling that I'm having?
Maybe it's not necessarily intentionally. It's easier for us to help others than help ourselves. Yeah. And so if you can visualize that as a child versus me right here, right now. I don't know. It's just a curiosity that came to my brain.
Yeah.
I mean, again, do what works. And if you find that actually works, don't stop doing it.
Can you explain more where that question came from?
Maybe it's the way you framed it that just led to that curiosity, but saying when these things happen, I look to my child and I talk to my child and I take care of this child, which feels a little bit like dissociation, which is completely normal in a survival state, pulling yourself out of it to survive it, versus being completely sitting with it in the discomfort with Joel the adult. And again, if talking to the child gets you there, absolutely. But could there be a point when it's impeding progress because you're constantly nurturing the child in you, but not all of you?
I hear where you're coming from. It's a great question. It's a great question. Interesting. I have to feel into that, because I can see that I do definitely, because this feeling when it comes up is extremely intense. I definitely have a tendency to dissociate from it. As much as I try to sit with it, I still, and that's fine. It's fine if I do that, because sometimes I can't feel it all at the same time because it's intense. So I'm gonna I can't give you an answer on that right now, but it's something that I'm definitely going to be aware of next time that I'm in the state and practicing. And
you don't have to give me an answer. That's just me lobbing it to you to sit with. Because I can imagine, I mean, you identify that younger you and where these triggers were formed. But there are also let's say, a potential romantic situation. That's very much adult Joel. Yeah. Present, your wants, your needs that do stem from the child. I'm not going to say they're separate, but just turning to the child. Also, I don't want you to totally dissociate from, and so there's the child you, but then there's present you. That am I making sense?
It makes total sense, and I don't feel like I abandoned myself.
Okay, good.
I've practiced really hard over the last, I don't know how many years and years of being able to sit with the discomfort that's coming up. And I think what I'm saying now about how I'm being with it now is because I've broken through this place, so I really see where it stems from now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the
in
child
moment,
portion is newer in your process?
No, I've always been with the child portion in this particular unsafe part is newer because I've been so in the anger of everything.
Yeah.
That I was just, in that sense, I was adult Joel sitting in the anger and allowing the anger to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing that for months.
Yeah.
And then I finally popped on the other side and I saw this terrified little kid and I was like, holy shit.
That's where it's coming from.
Care.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. But I love the awareness. I love keeping my eyes peeled on not abandoning adult Joel as well.
Because he needs unconditional positive regard as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to have higher self Joel go, adult Joel, you're doing a great job. And I'm with you and I see that you're uncomfortable and it's hard for you to reparent your child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a multi-level.
It is. And to me, it goes back to defining what does that look like. If I had a magic wand and I could be who I want to be to an extent. You can't wipe away big reactions. You can't get rid of anger. Then you're not human. So what does that look like when I feel like, because otherwise if you're constantly just, I need to get to where I'm not this, you're never going to be that. So if it's closer to what you'd like it to be, what is that exactly? How do you react when you have those feelings? What do you do when you have those feelings? How long does it take you to recover from those feelings?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's a lot of triggers in the past in my life that have taken me years to move through, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. And I've done so much great work that now I can move through it in a matter of days or weeks. Days or a week. And I'm like, and when you see that and realize that, you're like, oh, like celebration. Look at look at all the amazing stuff you're doing. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. This particular thing is not, that I'm in, is not a romantic situation. It's, unfortunately.
Fortunately, I would say.
Actually, fortunately.
Fortunately, I would like to think your next one would be a lot more okay. lot more okay. Okay. Because this, not okay.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm just thinking back to my clinical therapy and really making the steps and the goals, we say, concrete, measurable, which sounds very, very clinical and cold, but you got to see the little wins along the way. You know, if I'm triggered 5 days a week, can I get that to 4? And what does that look like? You know, if I slam the phone down every time I talk to this person, can I do it 1 fewer times? You know what I mean? And it's just defining what that looks like for you, because it's different for everybody. And then setting your intention to work towards that mini goal.
100%. 100%. I love these celebrations. Yeah. I love, this is another thing that I experience often is, this is the expansion contraction thing. When I break through and like make a step, I go into a state of expansion and I love that feeling. I celebrate it and I enjoy it and I'm grateful for it and I try to ground myself in it. Good. And then the contraction happens again and then I'm like, okay, we're back in. Yeah. Yeah, so.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. so much enjoyed this conversation with you. So much. And I love that you turned the tables on me a little bit here at the end.
Can't help it.
It was so good. So good. Very happy to be able to, like, for myself, always look in and investigate. But so grateful for your thoughts and your views on things, and for shedding some light on a little more about what goes on in your clinical life, and which actually was not aware of all that stuff.
Right. I keep them pretty separate, as I discussed at the beginning.
Yeah. So, and learning more about that was really cool. And thanks for being open to receiving.
Well, thanks for coming and being my friend.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed my time with you.
Aww.
In the past 22 years, if you can believe it.
Yeah. We finally got the exact number. And earlier I was like 20 years, and I was like, more than 20 years. And you're like, 22 years.
It's been 22 years. Because I think of you guys as coming along with Andrew. Mm-hmm. It's part of the wonderful package, honestly, which is great. And I feel like, yeah, we are true friends. And I appreciate friendships that go below surface. It's fine to have those, but people who are willing to go there a little bit, just a little bit, it's very fulfilling.
Dip the toe.
And that's, I mean, our whole beings are meant for social connection. So yeah, it's good to make time for this.
Yeah. So wonderful. I appreciate you so much.
Ditto, kiddo.
And to all of you listening out there, I invite you to make a little room for healing in your lives, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for making a little room for my podcast. I'd love to be a part of your journey too. Follow me on Instagram at A Little Room for Healing for news, updates, offerings, and connection. To book a session with me, go to www.alittleroomforhealing.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, follow the link at the bottom of the episode description. Don't forget to check out those vegan cookies at www.sugarandfirebaking.com. Have a beautiful day.